Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Hopefully, you've all had a fantastic Friday. I know I certainly have. Today is the dreaded day of the CPI print for the United States. Essentially, CPI, for anybody that is still not familiar, is how they are monitoring inflation. We know that we had a slightly lower CPI print for the last one, 8.3. Previously, it was 8.5. This saw markets get a little bit of relief and people starting to think that maybe what the Fed is doing is working and they won't need to be more aggressive and actually may rein in the regime that they currently have set in place before or sooner than expected. My gut feeling is that markets are heading into a painful period and that there's not been any evidence, and we've been keeping you up to date on this every single day to suggest that inflation has peaked. Certainly when we come over to commodities, we will of course be getting into Bitcoin and a number of other things, but certainly when we look at the likes of commodities, this is natural gas. I mean, the interest rates really showed natural gas who's boss. This is oil. You know, there's surging prices. Don't get me wrong, in certain areas prices have come down. But across the board, you know, people are getting hit in the pockets. This is rent across the US rise above $2,000 a month for the first time ever. It is not a pretty picture, guys, and certainly when you look at what the consumer price may reveal today, even if it is lower, and 8%, let's say it went to 8%, bearing in mind the expectations at 8.3, let's say it went down to 8% and we dropped 30 basis points. Even if it was 7% or 6%, it's still very high inflation, you know, and ultimately isn't good for business. So it's going to be a really telling day. Huge caution here. I'm reluctant to do anything until I get the data. Yes, there's always people that are going to position short and long to try and capture whatever may come from it, but it's kind of a gamble until we have that data. You know, I want data to essentially base my trading decisions off of. And until I get this CPI print, you know, I'm really kind of patiently waiting for it. Now, this video is coming out at 1 p.m. UK time. I believe the data reveal is around about 1:30, but it's certainly going to be a market-moving event. And on that note, and we're going to get into a number of other things in this video, all centering around the topic. We'll also talk about the fact, and I'm not sure how true this is, that the SEC has reportedly discovered that 80 million of TERRA Luna funds every month were sent to different wallet addresses for operational expenses. This started a few months before the TERRA collapse. So there's some funny business there, but we'll talk about that right at the end of the video. I really want to get the bulk of what I've got to say here out of the way of. So we'll be getting into a number of other things, talking about the ECB. The ECB essentially haven't raised interest rates for 11 years. When they up interest rates, for me, it's a bit of a joke out there. That's probably when we're in a recession. But back to the CPI print, we've seen markets already sell off on going into Thursday after already having a bit of relief. Is the relief over and do we get continuation to the downside? You guys know, and we've gone over it in absolutely great detail, that ultimately we have lower targets for Bitcoin down to your lower 20k zones, and then we'll deal with it accordingly when we get there. But markets have already sold off into this. If we take a look at the old stock market, you know, and we did say this little red line here was prior support, textbook support and resistance flip, textbook bear market structure. The same situation for the NASDAQ, a lot more of a messy draw there. I would like to say somebody else did that draw, but that was me. You know, it's not a pretty outlook. Certainly when you look at the dollar and you understand, and we called for this day in, day out, dollar strength, bad for markets. Right now, the tail is a cautionary one in regards to investing, guys. In the equity market, and of course the crypto market was a lot higher beta. And until we get the pain that we need to see, until we've got the strong guys turning weak, and then that's where we step in and they basically fumble their bags to us. You know, we've not seen enough pain yet for us to be bullish on the market at all. And we've also not seen that macro pivot. So we'll keep you up to date. Obviously, tomorrow I'll be doing something with my Patreon members today in regards to the CPI print and looking at how markets have reacted. For anybody that's interested in joining my Patreon, guys, there is a link in the description. If you are curious about what's in my Patreon, please go and watch my Welcome to my Patreon video. The reason we did a paid thing was so that it warrants my time in it. And when the top tier is around about 30 Great British pounds, you're going to get a lot more, in my opinion, than the £30 worth of value a month. from the Patreon. But it's up to you guys whether you want to join or not. Links in the description. Of course, go and check that secondary video out. But we will keep you up to date on this on the free YouTube videos, of course, once we get the reveal, probably tomorrow. And then we're going to see how markets react and position ourselves accordingly going forwards. But there's nothing to me that suggests that inflation has topped. And there's also nothing to me to suggest that the markets have gone as low as they need to. They need to go a lot lower. You've got to remember, and I'm going to re-emphasize this time and time again, and I'm sorry if you feel like it's Groundhog Day, but this is key to understand, that March 2020 saw extraordinary measures put in place. And essentially, March 2020 saw the Fed flood the system with money. Unsustainable. One reason we've got very high inflation, although they're blaming it on supply chains, which undoubtedly have an effect on inflation, but ultimately we're at the other end of that. That was not sustainable. Unprecedented times cause for unprecedented reactions, and that's what we're looking at right now. And the risk, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, is to the downside. There's no way to sugarcoat that. We're not going to blow smoke up anybody. You know, this is what we see in the charts. And I still see YouTubers and people on Twitter trying to portray a bullish narrative now for the past 6 months. And it's very feeble, the arguments that they're putting towards it. What you want to do is analyze things, not just emotionally make a decision that you love Bitcoin, you're bullish on it long term, you want to buy now. Look for your entries, and that's some of the stuff we're teaching in the Patreon. But ECB has just joined the inflation fight, what it means for the next Fed meeting. These guys haven't raised interest rates for 11 years. For good reason, because the euro, I think, is in big trouble, and certainly the eurozone from an economic standpoint. A Fed soft landing for jobs means something else has to crack. So far, it hasn't. The Fed are going to, we told you, Jerome Powell has got a license to kill. He's the new James Bond. He is going to twist the pain up until something breaks, and then they have the reason. They need a reason to pivot off the course that they're on. That reason is not present yet. So they're going to twist and twist. They're going to break something. Then they go, all right, okay, the only tool that we've got to save the day is obviously lowering interest rates, stimulating the economy. And that's when we get bullish again, guys. And we're not there yet. Michael Burry, the big short investor. Michael Burry slams Biden, the Fed, and the Treasury for being ignorant of history and scarily blind to the inflationary threats. I like Michael Burry. He made an amazing call in 2008. He's got a lot of calls wrong as well, but it's kind of like, you know, we already know that the Fed made a big mistake. He's talking about historically what this leads to, and that's something that people really need to get. You know, historical context is important. Michael Burry blasts President Biden, the Fed, and the Treasury for their something policies. The big short investor called them ignorant of history, scarcely unaware of the inflationary risk. Burry has shared lessons from Germany's hyperinflation in the 1920s and the US inflation in the 1970s. I actually know a lot about the 1920s because I'm a big fan of the likes of Frederick Hayek, Ludwig von Mises, and a number of other people, and they often talk about that time period in regards to the economy. So I'm actually familiar with that and familiar with what he's talking about. The difference between those periods there and the periods we're in, I mean, they're actually two very different periods in themselves. But if you take the 1970s, for example, that's really when Volcker stepped in and decided to up interest rates to like a ridiculous percent, thus thrusting the economy into a recession. Now, I don't think that you even need that kind of percentage to thrust the economy into a recession this time around, because it's a lot more fragile. It's a lot more leveraged. And Michael Burry has often talked about the leverage in the system being extreme. New York regulators say stablecoins must be fully backed. How is this going to affect? What do they class as fully backed? Do they class you backing it with crypto as fully backed, or do they class you backing it fully backed as, you know, using the likes of the dollar and treasuries in Tether's case and so on and so forth? History tells us the UK interest rate will go up and up. Maybe. I don't think they can go up and up because you will literally just completely implode the system. But they are going to have to go up. They're going to have to get away from zero. They're going to have to try and give it a go, thus, you know, causing more pain in markets and across the economy generally. If you look at growth stats, they're all well down. And this is just the game that we're currently playing, guys. And there's no point in being sad, bitter, or twisted about it. Understand it, learn from it, and let's move forwards and try and make some money and be the victors of this situation. That's what this is all about, guys. Spoke about the TERRA situation. If this is the case and there's foul play there, you know, there should definitely, I think, be consequences for it, and we've not seen, other than maybe personal consequences, that of yet. You know, if somebody makes a mistake and it's a genuine, honest mistake, you can be mad at them, you can be annoyed, but can you really punish them? We all make mistakes, guys. But if you've done something and profited from something via hurting other people, then, in my opinion, that's a sackable offence. So the market, we'll see what today brings. I don't really know. There is the flip side of the coin here, that the Fed could say something just stupid, or something that gives markets hope, and you see a rally, or CPI comes down lower, and then people think that that's a good thing, even though it might still be at 8%, and then might spike up the next month. But from where I'm sitting, if they give us a lower CPI stat, I'm calling BS. Because how is that the case when everything is on the rise? And we can look at the likes of wheat and a number of other things. Let's actually get that up now, guys. Let's get up. We've got wheat futures. Yeah, I mean, yeah. You can see that it has come down. It did come back up, but I mean, that's just one. I wonder if they've got egg futures. Let's take a look. Just whilst I've got you all captive. Yeah, I don't think we can find that. Oh, wow. Egg McDonald's coin. Anyway, we'll leave it there, guys. So that's really all I've got for you in this video. If you've enjoyed the content, again, a like is always appreciated. So is a comment. Anybody that wants to check out my Patreon, link is in the description. Also, we do appreciate comments. I know that it's filled with scammers, guys. Ignore the scammers, but we do appreciate your feedback on these videos, and it is very valuable to me as a channel moving forwards. All I've got for you in this one, guys. Enjoy your Fridays, and I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video. Thanks a lot for watching.